The sky over Virelia Prime had a name among its conquered worlds. It was called untouchable, not because nothing could reach it, but because nothing ever returned. For 10,000 years, dragonkind ruled the upper atmosphere like it was their birthright. Massive winged leviathans carved through clouds made of ionized storms, their scales hardened by ancient evolution and battlefield fire. They did not build cities. They did not need them. The sky itself was a domain, and anything that tried to enter it became a brief, bright memory. Entire civilizations learned obedience beneath that sky. Some stopped building ships altogether. Others abandoned space travel and sealed themselves underground. A few resisted, briefly, violently, and always fatally. The dragons did not negotiate. They did not warn twice. They simply arrived, and the sky burned until silence followed. Virelia became a lesson written in ash, and the dragons ensured it was never forgotten. High WIM Kael'thar ruled the upper currents above the planet, his presence marked by storms that bent around him like frightened animals. He had seen empires rise from the ground and vanish into flame. He had crushed rebellion fleets with nothing but a tane of his wings. His name was spoken in reverence by Dragonkin and in terror by anything that still dared speak. On the night the humans arrived, Kael'thar was barred. A slow-moving object had entered the system boundary, large, unarmed, broadcasting no defensive signatures. Weak, primitive, a mistake drifting into the wrong sky. The Dragon Council gathered in orbit, watching it approach the upper atmosphere. A colony vessel, hissed WM Sareth, circling the projection. Not even armed escorts. They send livestock into our sky now. Kael'thar studied it in silence. It was fragile-looking. Layers of metal and composite shielding, barely enough to survive atmospheric entry. No visible weapons. No aggressive posture. Just a slow descent, like a wounded animal refusing to die. Let it come closer, Kael'thar said at last. The others turned. Closer. Sareth snapped. It violates our airspace. We ban it now. Kael'thar's eyes narrowed slightly. No. There was a pause. Even dragons did not question high WIM decisions twice. Let it reach the cloud line, he continued. Let it understand where it has trespassed. The colony ark continued its descent, unaware of the council that had already signed its death. When it crossed the upper atmospheric threshold, the sky reacted. Dragon wings unfolded across the horizon like a living eclipse. Dozens at first, then hundreds. The colony ship transmitted a single automated greeting signal, repeating peaceful origin protocols in multiple languages. It was ignored. Kael'thar rose from orbit, descending with the others. Observe, he said. Let them see what the sky does to trespassers. The first strike came from WIM Sareth. A lance of plasma fire carved through the air, striking the colony vessel dead center. The impact was immediate. The hull ruptured outward in a brilliant, silent bloom of destruction. Metal peeled away like paper caught in flame. The ship began to break apart mid-descent, trailing debris that burned as it fell. Dragonkin roared in synchronized triumph. The sky itself seemed to echo their satisfaction. Another lesson delivered, Sareth said. But Kael'thar did not share the amusement. Something was wrong. The colony ship was breaking apart too cleanly, too predictably. There were no emergency bursts of escape pods, no last-second thruster burns, no scattering life signatures, only fragments falling. And one signal, a weak, repeating transmission, still broadcasting even as the ship died. Kael'thar narrowed his eyes, scanned the wreckage. A dragon scout dove through the burning debris cloud, scanning for survivors. There were none. No biological traces. No escape signatures. No last-minute evacuations. Just a hollow ship falling apart like it had never expected to survive in the first place. Then the scout transmitted something unusual. A recording beacon. It had activated automatically upon destruction. A human voice echoed through dragon comm channels. Calm. Unshaken. Almost clinical. Event recorded. Atmospheric engagement initiated. Hostile contact confirmed. Then a pause. A single line followed. Stage 1 complete. Kael'thar froze. What did it say? Sareth asked. But Kael'thar was already looking deeper into the wreckage data, his instincts sharpening. This was not panic. Not desperation. This was documentation. The colony ship had not tried to survive. It had tried to record. And somewhere beneath Virelia's surface, Something ancient and buried responded. Deep seismic sensors, long dormant beneath layers of rock and time, flickered to life across the planet's crust. Not alarms, not warnings, but activation sequences. Far below the burning sky, buried fleets that had not moved in centuries began to wake. And in orbit, High HFY saw the first red flicker rise from beneath the clouds. Not from above, from below. Humanity had not come to Virelia to live. They had come to remember what killed them, and to make sure it would never happen again without consequences. The sky, for the first time in 10,000 years, did not feel safe. 3 days passed after the burning of the colony ark. 3 days of silence. For the dragons of Virelia Prime, silence meant certainty. It meant the threat had been erased so completely that even its echo refused to remain. Entire civilizations had once tried to retaliate after initial losses. None had ever managed to stay quiet this long unless they were finished. High HFY expected nothing else. The sky remained his. The cloud lines still belonged to dragon wings. Orbital space still carried their patrols. The atmosphere still bent under their passing like it always had. And yet, something felt wrong. It was subtle at first. Sensors that flickered for a fraction of a second beneath the crust. Then stopped. Then flickered again. Deep beneath Virelia's surface, buried kilometers below basalt and pressure-crushed stone, something was responding to the destruction of the ark. Not a distress signal. Not a warning flay. A handshake. A recognition. Kael'thar dismissed it as residual energy interference. Until the second day. That was when the first underground signal stabilized. It was not broadcast openly. It did not announce itself. It simply existed. Structured. Repeating. Organized. Dragon analysts tried to decode it. At first they assumed it was planetary geology feedback from the plasma strike that destroyed the colony ship. Thermal shock, perhaps. Magnetic distortion. But then the pattern changed. It responded, as if something beneath the surface had noticed it was being observed. On the third day, Commander Reyes Volker opened his eyes inside the Ashen Dawn command chamber. He did not wake like a man. He activated like a system. Around him, the subterranean fleet hummed with restrained power. Massive human vessels, hidden for generations beneath Virelia's crust, were locked in silent readiness. Engines the size of cities waited in containment silence, their output throttled to near zero to avoid detection. Rey stood before the central tactical display. Around him, officers waited. No one spoke first. Finally, a young pilot broke the silence. "They think we're gone," she said. Reyes did not look at her immediately. Instead, he studied the data feed from the destroyed ark. Every angle, every impact vector, every second of its destruction had been preserved in perfect detail. The dragons had not just attacked a ship. They had documented their own method. Reyes finally spoke. "No," he said quietly. "They think we stayed gone." That statement changed the room. Not emotionally, structurally, like something shifting from assumption to protocol. Another officer stepped forward. "We lost the surface relay confirmation. They believe the colony was total loss." Reyes nodded once. "Good." A pause. Then he turned toward the command array. "Begin ignition sequencing for subterranean fleet groups 1 through 9. No hesitation followed. No debate. No panic. Only execution. Across kilometers of underground hangars, dormant engines began to awaken. Magnetic containment fields stabilized. Fuel lines unsealed. Weapon systems unlocked from centuries of safe domination. The planet itself seemed to breathe. Above ground, dragons began to notice changes. At first it was faint atmospheric distortion patterns, heat signatures that didn't belong to geothermal activity. Then seismic pulses too precise to be natural. Then something more disturbing. Coordinated motion. Not random awakenings. Not scattered survivors. Something organized. Something waking together. High HFY watched orbital sensors with growing stillness. "What are those readings?" Sarath asked, circling the projection. "They are not surface installations. They are deeper." Kael'thar did not answer immediately, because the answer was forming too clearly. Then the planet erupted. Not outward. Upward. Beneath the crust, massive human vessels pierced stone layers like spears through cloth. Entire fleets launched from underground oceans of engineered silence, bursting into atmosphere in synchronized emergence patterns that turned the sky into a grid of rising fire. Dragon Patrol wings reacted instantly. Intercept them, Kael'thai ordered. But it was already too late. Human ships were not trying to escape the planet. They were trying to control its orbit, and they were already moving as if they had rehearsed the battle for centuries. Dragonfire struck descending human vessels, but instead of breaking, the ships adjusted, splitting formations, redistributing heat loads, compensating mid-impact. Entire squadrons reformed in real time, adapting to each dragon attack as if learning the language of it. "They're responding to us," Sareth hissed. "Every strike changes their behavior." Kael'thai's eyes narrowed. "No," he said slowly. "They're remembering." On the surface, Reyes watched the battlefield bloom across tactical overlays, dragon formations, human responses, orbital interference patterns mapping into predictive models faster than most AIS could stabilize. He exhaled once. "They burned the Ark," he said. "Now they get to learn what it was connected to." A nearby officer asked, "Rules of engagement?" Reyes looked up at the sky where dragon wings now circled in defensive confusion. "No rules," he said. A pause. Then correction. "Correction. One rule." He turned toward the live feed of dragon forces beginning to converge. "Make sure they understand why the sky is no longer theirs." Above Virelia Prime, the silence of 3 days finally broke, and it did not return. The sky over Virelia Prime stopped behaving like a sky. It became a battlefield. Dragonkind had fought countless wars across millennia, but always from the same advantage, absolute dominance of altitude. The upper atmosphere was not just their territory, it was their identity. Nothing rose without permission. Nothing survived long enough to matter. Until now. Human ships did not rise in disorder. They rose in formation. Not like fleeing prey, but like a system unfolding itself into the air. Thousands of vessels emerged from beneath the crust in synchronized arcs, each one correcting its trajectory mid-ascent as if the planet itself were only a launch platform. Dragon wings flooded the cloud layer in response. They expected panic. They expected fragmentation. They expected the sky to do what it had always done, break intruders into burning pieces. Instead, they met coordination. The first dragon strike came from the western wing, a sweeping arc of plasma fire meant to erase an entire rising human formation. It should have been enough. It had always been enough. But the human ship split. Not randomly. Precisely. The formation dissolved into a lattice pattern, each vessel shifting into pre-calculated vectors that turned a single dragon attack into wasted energy-cutting empty air. The strike passed through nothing. Then the humans answered. Rail lances erupted upward from multiple ships in timed sequence. Not simultaneous chaos, but staggered precision, each shot compensating for atmospheric distortion caused by the last. A dragon screamed as its wing membrane ruptured mid-flight. It fell. Not from overwhelming force. From mathematical certainty. "They're adjusting," one dragon scout transmitted, voice tight with disbelief. "Every attack we make, they adjust within seconds." High WIM Kael'thai watched the orbital display as human formations continued to evolve in real time. Their response curves were tightening. Their reaction time was shrinking. Their coordination was becoming disturbingly fluid. "This is impossible," Sareth growled beside him. "They cannot be adapting this fast. No biological command structure operates at this speed." Kael'thai did not look away from the battlefield. "They are not reacting like prey," he said slowly. "They are reacting like engineers." Another dragon wing dove into the human ascent corridor, releasing a full plasma sweep meant to incinerate everything in its path. For a fraction of a second, it seemed successful. Then the human formation inverted. Ships rotated mid-ascent, exposing reinforced thermal shields and redistributing energy loads across hull matrices that absorbed what should have been fatal energy discharge. The plasma wave dissipated across engineered resistance fields. And then the humans fired back. Not in anger. Not in retaliation. In correction. A concentrated burst of rail fire struck the dragon formation structural center. Wings collapsed out of sync. Flight cohesion failed instantly. The entire formation disintegrated. Kael'thai's eyes narrowed. "They are not just surviving our attacks," he said. "They are studying them." On the surface command deep beneath Virelia's crust, Commander Reyes Volker watched the same exchange unfold. No celebration marked the dragon collapse. No satisfaction. Only analysis. Streams of combat data fed into laid prediction engines. Every dragon maneuver was logged, categorized, and added to adaptive response models. A junior officer spoke quietly. We've identified their primary strike pattern. They rely on dominance arcs, wide area intimidation fire before precision follow-up. Reyes nodded once. And their weakness? The officer hesitated. They assume we break formation under pressure. Reyes finally looked up from the display. We did break, he said. A pause. Once. He turned toward the tactical grid as another dragon wing began a high-altitude dive. Now they are learning what that cost them. Above, the sky fractured again. Dragon forces attempted a coordinated orbital sweep, multiple wings converging to erase human ascent corridors in a synchronized burn. It was the kind of strike that had ended civilizations before they could even name themselves. But the humans did not scatter. They compressed. Entire squadrons tightened formation, reducing cross-sectional exposure while amplifying mutual shielding fields. Instead of fleeing the incoming fire, they reshaped themselves into a compact, moving fortress of metal and calculated timing. Dragonfire hit them head-on, and slowed. Not stopped. Resisted. Absorbed. Converted into heat dispersion across engineered systems designed specifically to survive exactly this kind of assault. Then the human counterstrike began. Railfire did not scatter across the sky randomly. It traced arcs of probability. It targeted wing joints, neural flight clusters, and energy conduits, points identified not through guesswork, but through rapid modeling of dragon anatomy under stress. The first dragon formation broke apart mid-flight, wings folding in unnatural angles as structural integrity failed. A second followed. Then a third. Kael'thar felt something unfamiliar tighten in his chest. Not fear. Not yet. But recognition. They are learning us, he said quietly. Sareth snapped. Then we escalate. Burn harder. Break them before. No, Kael'thar interrupted. His gaze remained locked on the battlefield where human ships continued to rise, unchanged in resolve. They already learned what breaking looks like. Above Virelia Prime, the sky was no longer a place of dominance. It was becoming a place of accounting. Every dragon strike was answered. Every tactic was studied. Every attack was returned with precision that grew sharper with each exchange. And for the first time in 10,000 years, Dragonkind realized something terrifying was happening in real time. The prey had stopped dying incorrectly, and had started learning how to win. The high WIM entered the atmosphere. That alone changed the behavior of the sky. Kael'thar's descent was not like the others, where lesser dragons cut through air in violent arcs and territorial displays. He moved like inevitability. Slow, controlled, and absolute. The clouds did not scatter from him. They made space. Entire dragon wings followed in his wake, their formations tightening instinctively around their apex predator. Below them, human ships held position in layered orbital bands around Virelia Prime. No panic. No retreat. Only structured readiness. Commander Reyes Volker watched the incoming signal bloom across tactical overlays. High-value target confirmed, an officer said quietly. Reyes didn't look away from the sky. I see him. Kael'thar's voice entered all dragon channels. Clear the lower strata, he ordered. I will end this. Even among dragons, there was hesitation, because what Kael'thar meant was not simple engagement. It was erasure. He struck first. A single wing sweep. The air ignited. A massive wave of plasma and compressed thermal distortion rolled across the sky like a breaking continent. Entire human formations vanished into white-hot distortion fields. Sensor feeds overloaded under the intensity of the attack. For a moment, it looked decisive. Then the human response came. Not scattered. Not delayed. Coordinated. Surviving ships reformed instantly around predicted blast boundaries, using pre-calculated escape vectors that had already been modeled during earlier dragon engagements. What should have been annihilation became redistribution. Kael'thar's strike had not broken them. It had refined them. Still there. Sareth transmitted, disbelief creeping into his tone. They are still there after a full WIM sweep. Kael'thar did not respond immediately, because he had noticed something worse. They were closer. The humans had not just survived his attack. They had used it. Every plasma distortion, every atmospheric shockwave, every thermal disruption, was now being fed into their systems in real time. They were adapting inside the battle itself. Ray's voice cut through human command channels. "Mark that sweep pattern," he said calmly. "He just gave us his full output signature." A tactical analyst replied, "We're already mapping secondary harmonic interference from his wing rotation." Rays nodded once. "Then we tighten the net." Above them, Kael'thai descended further, entering mid-atmospheric combat range. For the first time, dragons and humans were in the same A-space layer without altitude advantage separating them. The sky became crowded. Too crowded. Dragon wings attempted formation dominance maneuvers, white arcs meant to isolate and overwhelm human squadrons. But humans did not separate. They stacked. Vertical formations interlocked, overlapping defensive fields and creating mobile lattice structures that absorbed dragon pressure and redistributed it across multiple vectors. Kael'thai struck again. This time, he did not aim for area suppression. He aimed for command disruption. A precision plasma lance tore through a central human cluster. For the first time in the battle, a human formation broke. A vessel spun out of alignment. Another lost shielding coherence. Dragonkind roared. But Kael'thai did not celebrate, because the break was not collapse. It was reaction. The human formation restructured around the damaged core within seconds, rerouting power from surrounding vessels, isolating the damaged ship, stabilizing it mid-flight, and converting it into a drifting but still functional weapons platform. They had not lost it. They had reproposed it. Rays watched the repair sequence unfold in real time. "No panic response," an officer muttered. "They're integrating damage states into combat efficiency models." Rays finally spoke. "They stopped treating damage as failure," he said. A pause. "They are treating it as input." Above them, Kael'thai felt it. Something had changed. Not in strength. Not in numbers. In relationship to pain. He struck again. Faster now. Sharper. Focusing on individual human vessels instead of formations. One ship failed to adapt in time. It burned. Another followed. For a brief moment, dragon forces regained momentum. Saratha's voice rose with renewed confidence. "They can still be killed. They are not invincible." Kael'thai's eyes narrowed. "No," he said quietly. "They are being trained." The realization landed like a fracture in the air itself. He looked down at the battlefield below him, not as prey and predator anymore, but as a feedback loop. Every dragon strike improved human response. Every human adaptation forced dragon escalation. And every escalation fed back into human learning systems faster than biological evolution should allow. It was not a war. It was a cycle. And cycles did not favor those who repeated old behaviors. Kael'thai finally spoke across all channels. "Cease wing isolation tactics," he ordered. A pause. Then, more slowly, "They are no longer reacting to us." A human rail struck past close enough to graze his wing, tearing molten fragments from ancient armor plating. For the first time in millennia, High WM Kael'thai felt impact without immediate recovery. He turned slightly toward the human fleet below. "They are predicting us." On the safest command, Rays watched Kael'thai adjust his flight pattern mid-engagement. A small smile formed. He noticed. Rays said, "Good." Another officer asked, "Say, what is the end state of this engagement?" Rays looked at the sky filled with burning trajectories, shifting formations, and evolving combat geometry. Then he answered simply, "When they stop teaching us things." Above Virelia Prime, the sky had changed again. It was no longer dragon territory. It was no longer human resistance. It had become something far more dangerous to both. A place where every action had consequences that learned faster than either side could forget them. The sky over Virelia Prime was no longer a battlefield in the traditional sense. It had become a memory system made of fire and movement. Every second of combat was being recorded, analyzed, and reinterpreted by both sides faster than instinct could keep up. Dragonkind had once ruled this sky through dominance, through repetition of overwhelming force. Humanity had entered it as something else entirely. A feedback loop. High WM Kael'thai hung in the upper atmosphere, his wings no longer sweeping in confident arcs. Each motion was smaller now, more deliberate, less expressive. Below him, human fleets continued to adjust, refine, and correct. They were no longer reacting to dragon attacks. They were anticipating variations of them. That distinction mattered, because anticipation meant learning, and learning meant the war was no longer symmetrical. Kael'thai struck again. A concentrated burst of plasma fire, tighter than before, designed to eliminate a single human command cluster. The humans did not scatter. They pre-split before impact. Not after. Before. His attack passed through empty space again. A Dragon Wing commander transmitted in disbelief. They are moving before we commit. Kael'thar did not respond immediately, because he had confirmed it himself. The humans were no longer waiting for physical execution of attacks. They were reading intent patterns, flight pressure changes, thermal precharge fluctuations, wing micro-adjustments that preceded firing. They were reacting to decisions, not actions. Below, Commander Reyes Volker watched the same realization unfold across multiple tactical layers. We've reached predictive parity, an analyst said quietly. They are adjusting based on our pre-attack signatures. Reyes nodded once. Then we stopped thinking in signatures, he said. A pause. We think in outcomes. He turned to the command interface. Run counter-iteration models. I want dragon response probabilities mapped across every known deviation. Around him, human systems accelerated. What had begun as survival had become methodology. Above, Kael'thar made a choice. For the first time in millennia, he did not escalate force. He changed strategy. The dragon wings tightened formation around him, no longer spreading dominance arcs across the sky. Instead, they compressed into layered shielding structures, defensive geometry rather than offensive display. Sareth hissed, we should crush them now, while they are still adapting. Kael'thar's response was quiet. We already tried crushing them. A pause. And they learned. Then he descended. Not in attack posture. In convergence. Human fleets noticed immediately. Reyes watched the movement with narrowed eyes. Is coming in controlled, an officer said. No strike vectors. No aggression angles. Reyes exhaled slowly. That's not surrender, he said. That's inspection. Kael'thar entered mid-altitude space where human and dragon forces could finally see each other without distortion layers of distance or atmospheric delay. For a moment, neither side fired. The sky held still in a way it had not since the beginning of the conflict. Human ships hovered in structured formations. Dragon wings circled in tight observation loops. Kael'thar spoke across all channels. I understand now, he said. No theatrics. No threat. Just observation. The human command network did not respond immediately. They were analyzing tone, structure, timing. Reyes finally answered. Explain. Kael'thar's wings shifted slightly, stabilizing his position in the air. You do not fight to destroy, he said. You fight to refine. A pause. You did not survive our attack on your ark. Another pause. You recorded it. Human analysts exchanged glances. Reyes did not interrupt. Kael'thar continued. You used it as instruction. That word landed differently than expected. Instruction. Not vengeance. Not survival. Instruction. On human channels, Reyes finally spoke again. And what are you doing now? Kael'thar looked at the surrounding sky, at dragon wings adjusting their patterns to compensate for human unpredictability, at human ships refining responses to dragon aggression in real time. Then he answered, learning pain. A silence followed that neither side broke immediately, because both understood something shifting. Not victory, not defeat, but structure. The war was no longer about who would win. It was about who would stop changing first. Sareth broke the silence first, voice tight with frustration. We are dragons. We do not learn from prey. Kael'thar did not look at him. You are correcting yourself in real time, he said. A pause. That is learning. The statement caused a ripple through dragon formations. Human analysts recorded it immediately. Reyes stepped closer to his command display. You're saying we're not enemies anymore, he said slowly. Kael'thar's reply was immediate. No, a beat. We are teacher and student. That shifted everything, because it implied continuity, not extermination, not surrender, evolution. Reyes looked at the battlefield again, at dragon and human forces mirroring each other's adaptations, each escalation feeding the other's refinement. Then he said something unexpected. Then you've already lost the sky. Kael'thar tilted his head slightly. Explain. Reyes gestured upward. Because we don't stop learning when the fight ends. A pause. We stop when there's nothing left to learn. Above Virelia Prime, The dragons and humans hovered in a shared sky filled with heat signatures, calculated trajectories, and evolving tactics. The violence had not ended, but it had changed form. No longer destruction, now instruction. And somewhere in that transformation, both sides realized the same uncomfortable truth. The sky did not belong to those who ruled it. It belonged to those who could change inside it the fastest.